What's up, everyone? Metal greetings. Welcome back to my channel, Trust in Rock, with me, Vanessa Warwick. Now, back in the day when I was the presenter of MTV's Headbangers Ball, I had the honour and the privilege of introducing viewers to new music and new artists. And I intend to continue that tradition with my YouTube channel. For this edition of RockDrop, we're heading up to a tiny island off the northwest coast of Scotland called Lewis. And there you'll find a band who have been around since 2012, but who definitely deserve a lot more recognition. They're called Broken Ravens. So let's cross over to the interview right now. So Kevin, welcome to Trust in Rock. I'm very keen to learn more about the band, and you've been around for over a decade now. Could you give me a little bit of a potted history of the band?
So we kind of formed in about 2012, and we'd all played in various bands before, but never in the same band. And we played some professionally and some at the weekends in pubs and clubs. So we got together to do heavy metal covers because there's not much of a market for heavy metal in the islands in Scotland. It's more shortbread tin music. So we kind of stuck out a wee bit. So we never had any intention of playing to anyone, and we practiced religiously. It was like, and all the other bands that we were in, we'd bump practice with them to practice the four of us, just to jam and have a laugh. And we ended up starting to write our own songs just for fun. And we got a support. We were asked to support an indie band that were on tour and that were coming up to Stornoway. And then from there, we got asked to showcase at an industry event. It's like a mini South by Southwest in the Highlands. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and that gave us the DIY kind of, if we were going to do stuff, we'll do it ourselves. And from there, it just catapulted us all over the world, really. So nobody's ever heard of us, but we played loads of places.
Well, we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I'm just fascinated that you're from the Outer Hebrides. My husband and I absolutely love Scotland. We come up all the time in our motorhome. I'm kind of envious of you to live there. It's a very remote and isolated place, and I can't imagine that there's much of a metal scene there, probably more a traditional music scene. How has living on a remote island influenced your music? Because I would imagine that the landscape, the isolation, the long winters and everything, have they fed into your music and lyrics?
Oh, definitely. They're kind of, the Outer Hebrides are seen as a kind of wild and captivating bunch of islands, and I would say that's got a direct influence when the weather that we get, and I suppose the rugged scenery, kind of we've all grown up around that, mm-hmm. and yeah, I would say that's kind of influenced. Whether you wanted to or not, it does have a bearing on absolutely everything that we do,
Of course.
So, and it's good, and we're very proud of that. It served us very well over the years in making friends with loads and loads and loads of people. You can't believe we come from an island in the middle of nowhere. Next stop, Iceland,
I guess there's kind of pros and cons to coming from, such a small community.
I think the biggest confine is that logistically, even if we get a gig in Inverness, it's the best part of a day and an expense to get there. We've got a ferry that's 3 hours. You've got to be there an hour before, and then you've got an hour and a bit drive to Inverness, and then you've got accommodation for the night because you can't get home that night. So that's just one gig. And when we were kind of plotting tours and stuff, we'd spend just as much money going to London as we would flying out to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, not maybe a wee bit more going to LA, but not a huge amount. And when you think of, well, the weather for one, and the history that's steeped there, and we've got so many connections there now that it just made perfect sense to us that boom, we'll go to the other side of the world, and then when you go to all these different places, because you're not from there, they're very welcoming of you. It's like, oh my goodness, they came all the way from Scotland. Let's go and see them play. So yeah, it does have its challenges living here, but at the same time, you can use them to your own advantage as well. So
Yeah, well, I've got a question for you about that in a minute, but you've achieved a 13-year career essentially on a DIY basis, as you mentioned. So touring, organizing your own touring logistics, your own recordings, your own videos, etc. Was it quite challenging to keep going and keep overcoming those obstacles? But by the same token, I also imagine it gave you a lot of freedom. You weren't, having to answer to a record company or, an A&R person. So I can see there's two sides of the coin to it.
We've always kept it like, this is fun, and we'll just see what happens. And that gives us a lot more freedom then, so that, just like you say, you're not shackled to anyone. The only thing that keeps us back is ourselves. So we support ourselves in every way, financially, creatively, and it's as hard as we work would then translate to what we do that year. Whereas if you had a label and publishing and all that kind of behind you, they'd expect you to do this, and this, and so we're really lucky that way.
I would imagine that you've done a lot of shows on the Scottish mainland, you've done tours, you've done West Coast of America tours, and I'm kind of thinking that that's probably paid a kind of significant part in your longevity, because it keeps you connected to everybody and in front of people and making new friends and new contacts and new fans.
But like, it's funny you mention that. It's like, so we played the first time we were in Bulgaria, we played to 20 odd thousand people, came back and we played a local club doing covers that weekend on the Saturday night to like 20.
Keeps you grounded.
And I think that is such a huge thing. Is that one thing that, well, we never learned it. We've always been that way. But if you treat people the way that you'd want to be treated, and I think it's an island thing as well. We're very there's that saying like a dog's for life, not just for Christmas. Well, a raven's for life. It's not just for a gig or after the gig on the street. It's, if you make friends with us, we're friends for life, and you'll get that vibe if you ever got to know us on that, and that served us so well, and we're really lucky. We've got no egos in the band, and that's coming from being in bands for years and years and years, and we're all best friends as well, so we don't fight often. So I think that's a really important thing as well, especially for longevity. That it's like having 4 other wives. And you have to be so mindful of them as well, But it makes it much easier when everyone's dead easygoing. So, but just before COVID, we recorded in Laurel Canyon, and that was completely different experience to what we've ever done before, and I would say that kind of maybe mellowed us a wee bit and came out in our music. But this batch of songs we recorded here in Lewis, sent them, and we met whilst on tour. A friend introduced us to a guy who's got a studio, and so we went up to see him, and he got, we just got great vibes off each other, and he did an incredible job mixing, and his suggestions and that. And Derek our guitarist, is like jack of all trades. He's amazing. So he comped all the tracks and added what, that they worked it out together, and then Justin mixed them, gave them to his friends to master, and just even having access to people like that want to work with you as well, And but yeah, and this batch of recordings, I think, it's taken us maybe up a level. We've kind of, I know it's cliche, but you mature with every kind of studio session, and so you're pushing yourself to learn, to get better, which keeps you interested, which motivates you.
I've been reading a book called Stitches recently, and it's a book about hope and repair after a difficult time, and that each realization or a lesson is a stitch to live a fuller life. And it kind of resonated with me, with you guys, because you've had a network of people who have supported you, helped you. You've had chance encounters with people that have made a difference to you, and you've had kindness. And how beautiful is that?
Oh, it's absolutely. And I think from our perspective, even within ourselves, we've been there for each other through everything. And it's like family. And you don't even have to ask through loss, tragedy, marriage breakups, whatever's happened to any one of us, we're there for each other without question. And all the people that have helped us and that we've met along the way, in some way, shape, or form, I'd like to think that, a good example of that would be Dean. Dean Carr. The first time we went away, we stayed in his castle. Didn't know who he was, Airbnb, totally blown away. And he's like, oh, I've done Iron Maiden, and I've done this and that. I'll get you a gig. And he did. And it was a belter. It was like in the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. It's like 2,000 capacity venue, and we were playing with Michael Chiklis, the actor. We couldn't believe it. And I was like, cheers, pal. But in return, we retiled 2 of the turrets on his castle because Lotto's a joiner. We fixed his plumbing because 2 of his toilets weren't working. And Thrash fixed the electrics in his car. And then he sold a TV. And, Americans everything's really, really big. Took 4 of us to lift it out of his house and down 3 flights of stairs whilst he was barking orders at us because he sold it on Craigslist and didn't want the guy to come into his house in case he came up and robbed him. And 2 years later, I went into a tattoo parlor on Sunset Strip and went in there, and the guy said, oh, my friend Dean recommended, you guys said you're one of the best tattooists. And he's like, are you from that crazy Scottish band that stayed for 2 weeks, fixed his house, and helped him sell his TV?
Well, that's an awesome story, and it's serendipitous as well. And I think your attitude has kind of ignited serendipity, if that makes sense. It seems you've got all these nodes around your network, all people that are helping you and supporting you and spreading the word, and it really is. It's a really good situation to have.
Oh, I'm very thankful for it as well. It's always great going out and meeting new people, but when you have, we don't have fans, we have friends. Does that make sense? You have to give that energy back, and you wouldn't be playing up there if people didn't like you or support you, and you can never ever forget that.
An attitude of gratitude.
Yeah,
it's very important in life in general.
The vultures will pick at my bones till nothing is left but my soul. You bleed me and leave me to die. The fire rages on in my mind. You never saw me go. Time was standing still. And now I'm all alone. Or did it ever come to this? Like shadows in the night.
Now, your new single "Death Findeth All," I really want to tip my hat to you with that song. It's a really good song. I only listened to it. Well, I've listened to it a few times, but after one listen, I had the melody in my head, and that's a good measure of that. To me, is a measure of a good song. How did that song come about?
So myself, Derek, and Thrash roughly jammed it, then drove straight down to Derek's house, and he's in his bedroom. Well, like, he's got a spare room that he's kind of converted into a studio, and we did a rough scratch track of it. And then it was Lotto and Gordon that wrote the lyrics and the melodies. So they must have been having quite a bad day for a title like Death Findeth All, and then slowly pieced it together, and all our songs come together really naturally and organically. There's not, we might go back and change a few bits, sort of, it's too predictable, maybe mess with it a wee bit, but other than that, they more or less boom, come out.
I just want to finish now by mentioning social media and how it's supported you or helped you or, assisted you in building an audience. Has it played a fairly big part? Because you and I reached out over Facebook, which back in the day of MTV, you would have probably had to send me a fax. We didn't even have email. So social media played its part.
Oh, absolutely, from the very beginning for us. So when our first set of demos, when we had done them, I was going onto Facebook and sending them to Roy Mayorga, Dave Lombardo, Charlie Benanti, and people like that, and getting responses. And it's like, well, find people, and if you don't ask, you send a video, blah 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 blah. And I was going down the YouTube rabbit hole last week of like watching loads of drum videos and practicing for touring at the end of this week, and you came up, and so I was like, oh my goodness, I remembered you from back in the day. I watched religiously, and I just thought, well, what if I reached out to you, and because that's served us very well in the past. So social media does work. We're a bit backward up here. We kind of don't really know how to work it that well, but for messaging people and that, just absolutely, to introduce yourself, and if they reply, they reply. If they don't, they don't,
But also, I think maintaining connections as well, because you've got, as I mentioned, these nodes all over Europe and the US of people that support you and try and help you, and you can maintain those as well through the social web.
Whereas you couldn't have 20 years ago.
No.
Or would have been a lot harder to do, or a lot more expensive.
So let's close this out, Kevin. What's your plans for 2025?
We've got our next single. It's called The Dying Light. It's one of the sessions from last year. So we'll be getting that and everything to go along with that, and hopefully build on what we've done. We've got a few things in the pipe work for the summer festivals, but more local than local ones. There's another festival up in the islands in Orkney, and a rock festival. It's amazing.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, get up there if you can for the rock festival. The bands are phenomenal, and the atmosphere is just amazing. So hopefully that will come off, and no globe-trotting this year, and get back to it and get a few more singles ready to put out, and keep the wheels turning and the ball getting bigger.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that chat with Kevin, the drummer from Broken Ravens, from up there on the beautiful island of Lewis in northwest Scotland. I sure did enjoy our chat, and I find it so interesting and inspiring to meet musicians and hear their stories. And I'd love your comments, please. They do, of course, help the algorithm, but they also feed back to me if you're enjoying my content. And I'd be interested to know what you think about the length of my interviews. I do want to do in-depth interviews, maybe 20-30 minutes is what I aim for. Does that feel about right to you? I'd really appreciate your comments, and also please show the love to Broken Ravens. They're on tour, as Kevin mentioned, and also I will put the link to their YouTube channel beneath this video, so you can go and subscribe to them as well. And I would really appreciate your subscription, and also smash that notifications bell and comment and like, because they keep me making this more than metal content. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Trust in Rock. And in the meantime, you know what to do. Keep it heavy.